Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hi, I'm Rose Davidson from Talking with the Experts. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Global Glamping Charities for their valued support. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org.
Talking with the Experts.
In episode 476, Jessica Dornieden explains why podcasting has become one of the most effective marketing methods for business owners.
So if you haven't been doing any content marketing and you have another way to get leads and sales and you haven't gone to the 7-figure and beyond mark, continue to do what you're doing already that is working for you, that's bringing in the money, and learn how to do that thing better before you start branching out. However, if you're doing content marketing or if you whatever you're doing right now, it's not working anyways. Like you're trying the cold outreach, you're trying the affiliates, you're trying the cold messaging or whatever, and it's not working for you, then potentially shifting to content marketing could be a good option. And that's where I think podcasting is super strong. But I just want to make it clear that there isn't a one right way to be doing anything in a business. So if you're saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to be team content. I love creating, I love writing, I love recording, I love doing live streams. I just love being out there and sharing what I know. Then I would say, yeah, podcasting is very heavily, it should be very heavily on your radar because of
Talking with the Experts.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. And today my guest is Jessica Dornieden. And we're going to be discussing one of my favourite topics, podcasting and content marketing strategy. Now, as we know, podcasting has become one of the most effective marketing methods for business owners. There are 45% of podcast listeners that have a household income of over $250,000 a year, and they are 68% more likely to have a postgraduate degree. And this means that podcasting is a fantastic way to reach an audience that has a significant purchasing power. Now, Jessica is the co-founder of Pristine Podcasts, a podcast production and marketing agency. She has expertise in marketing, business, and podcasting, and has achieved notable success in her career, from starting as a virtual assistant to becoming the chief marketing officer of a multi-7-figure coaching company. Jessica's personal struggle with ADHD and traditional work environments has inspired her to create a life and business that works for her and is passionate about helping others to do the same. Jessica, it's my very great pleasure to welcome you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I love podcasting and marketing, and the more I can share about it, the better.
Yeah, I love podcasting. I'm not so good on the marketing, so hopefully I'll get some tips from you.
Well, it's a long, I think that's what people forget, right? It's a long-term thing to be doing, and success comes with doing this consistently for a very long period of time. So it's not something that brings overnight success ever.
Absolutely not, no. And anyone who thinks that there are exceptional circumstances. However, anyone who thinks they're going to have 1 million followers in a month, please think again, because it's just not the way it is. There are exceptional circumstances, I must admit, but they are very few and far between.
And I think those exceptional circumstances, like sometimes we look at a person's podcast in isolation, but it's not really about that. Like so many people, when they start their podcast, they actually are porting a pretty large audience that they have already built over years and years and years of running their business. And they're bringing those people to their podcast. So they're starting out with very large download numbers because they have already put the effort in before that for years. And then they do a really good job at taking as many of those people from their email list, from social, over to their podcast. But it isn't, something that just happens overnight. And I think it's a bit misleading when you just look at it from a numbers perspective, because you don't know the person's background. You don't know the effort that they've been putting in to build that audience. So yeah, I think that's like a key thing to note, that it doesn't happen overnight.
No, and I had my podcast, this is my fourth year, fourth season, put it that way. Been going since 2020. And, my numbers are, still relatively low, although I'm ranking quite well. But I started with nothing. I had no email list. I had no following other than the people on Facebook. And so, so you're right. Those ones that have the large following to start with have started with an email list, or they've had some sort of marketing things in the background in the first place. And yeah, I started with nothing. So I'm really proud of my efforts. And I think, the people, the caliber of people that are now wanting to come on is due to the effort that I've put in. And yeah, I'm so proud. But yeah, it's not an easy journey. It's quite difficult, and especially if you start with nothing. And so, you need to learn how to market it correctly. And Jessica, you're just the person to tell us how we can do that.
Yeah, sure. So I want to talk a little bit about marketing in general first, because I feel that particularly when you're a little bit newer in business, you're sort of getting pulled into all directions, right? Like you're going online, you're getting started maybe as a service provider, or as a coach or consultant that's come from a different background. And then you meet a lot of people online, and then there's a lot of advice around what you should be doing, right? So it's like, oh, you have to have this, you have to have that, you have to do video, you have to do content, you have to do this. But we then get into the state where we're so busy with all of the things that we've been told that we have to do, that actually we're just going from one thing that needs to get done to the next without there being very much strategy behind it. And I am not in the boat where I'm like, it's like the guru mentality of you have to have a podcast or else. I'm in the camp of, no, you don't have to have a podcast. You can have a podcast if you want to, but you don't have to be doing that. We have to understand that when you're doing marketing, the aim is to get leads and sales or clients, whatever you want to call it, for a business. That is the reason to do marketing. Now, I think what gets a little bit lost is that there's other ways to get leads and clients, right? You could go from day one for paid advertising. You can go for just building an affiliate and a referral network and having clients come to you that way. You can just do such a good service that word of mouth sells your service. Or you can go down the option of doing content marketing, and that's what podcasting realistically is. Now, not everyone needs to be doing that. If you're choosing, hey, I'm going to go the cold email, cold call, cold DM route, and I successfully get clients like that, then continue to do cold outreach because you have figured out a strategy that works for you. Or if you have a super strong affiliate and referral network, then continue down the strategy that actually is working for you and is bringing you clients, and do that until you can generate clients consistently. However, if you're posting on social media, if you're blogging, you are already in the space of content marketing. And that is when adding a podcast makes sense, because you've chosen content marketing as the route to take to get leads and clients for a business. So if you haven't been doing any content marketing and you have another way to get leads and sales, and you haven't gone to the 7-figure and beyond mark, continue to do what you're doing already that is working for you, that's bringing in the money, and learn how to do that thing better before you start branching out. However, if you're doing content marketing or if whatever you're doing right now, it's not working anyways, like you're trying the cold outreach, you're trying the affiliates, you're trying the you're trying the cold messaging or whatever, and it's not working for you, then potentially shifting to content marketing could be a good option. And that's where I think podcasting is super strong. But I just want to make it clear that there isn't a one right way to be doing anything in a business. So if you're saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to be team content. I love creating, I love writing, I love recording, I love doing live streams. I just love being out there and sharing what I know. Then I would say, yeah, podcasting is very heavily, it should be very heavily on your radar because of how it's growing and because of how it works as a medium. And it's not, I know TikTok is rising. I know YouTube Shorts are rising. I know, Reels are still going on. That is great content to have in a business, but it is not the same thing as doing a podcast or building a YouTube channel or writing super amazing blog content. This short form content that's being so strong right now, it's there to grab people's attention. But then where do you take them after that to get to know you better, to understand what you're about? Where are you going with that? And that is where your long form content comes in. And that is what podcasting falls into. It isn't your quick, hey, 5 tips to do this. And it isn't the method that you're going to use to get people's attention. And that's what we were saying earlier. That's why it takes so long to build up a lot of downloads on your podcast, because it isn't attention grabbing. It isn't all over the internet. It isn't the thing that brings to you, hundreds of thousands of new people that are throwing eyeballs on your stuff. But it is the thing that allows you to grab those people whose attention you caught and then bring them over into your sphere and get them deeper and deeper involved with the work that you're doing. And that is where podcasting falls into your general marketing. So you're still going to be on social media because you need to get attention from somewhere. You need to get eyeballs and ears on your stuff. But then you can use podcasting to help them, to deepen their understanding of their problems, potential solutions out there. You can present your work. You can do interviews with your clients. You can present case studies. Like, there's so many ways in which you can use a podcast that is absolutely worth it, but only if you're doing it the right way.
So I guess there are lots of bits and pieces to, putting a podcast together. As a marketing strategy, what are the things that should be included in the, in the stream itself?
So when you're thinking about doing a podcast, so you've said, okay, I'm team content marketing, I'm going to go all in. You are going to be committed to going all in on it in the first place, because that takes effort. And just for the number of episodes that you've been able to put out and how consistently you've done it, that is a huge achievement in itself, because it takes that commitment, it takes that effort. You have to show up and you have to put out the content. So if you decided, hey, I'm going to do that, there's really just one question that I encourage people to look at. And that question is, how big is your audience? Because that's going to determine the next step. So if you have a sizable email list, if you have a sizable social media following, then you're going to want to put a lot of careful planning into that podcast launch, right? But if you're new online, or, I have a lot of introverted clients that don't like to go out there, and they don't like to build a big audience, and they don't like to shout about how amazing they are. There's no point when you're in that camp where, you have the 1,000, 2,000 people on your Instagram, and, you have a little email list, and they're very engaged and they buy your things. There's no point to overthink putting out a podcast, because you're just going to literally delay your progress. And some of our clients, they've literally thought about doing a podcast for like as long as 2 years. Imagine how much content you could have already put out in the 2 years if you were just gone for it, instead of thinking, I'm not good enough, I don't know enough yet, I don't, who's going to listen to it, and all those things that we like to tell ourselves. So in those 2 years, even if you didn't know anything about podcasting, by the end of those 2 years, you'd be really good at it already. So that's the first thing. So if you don't have a huge audience, you can literally put out everything that you need in the space of 1 week. I mean, we do podcasts in a weekend where we do like implementation. So we do it over 2 days. We literally just go through all the things that you need to put together. Accountability on a timer. You have 45 minutes to go and put this together. We'll see you again on Zoom in 45 minutes. Here is what you need to pay attention to. Go and do it. So I think the most important thing you need to have in place is that you have to know your clients, because if you don't know who you're talking to, the episodes that you produce and the messaging is completely off and it doesn't resonate with anyone. So that's like the most important homework. Then I encourage everyone to write down a list of 100 episodes, particularly if you're not doing interviews, but you're doing solo podcasts. Write down ideas for 100 episodes. And if you write 15 and you can't think of anything else that you'd want to say, you need to go back to the ideal client, because it tells me that you don't understand enough about what is their pain, what problems do they actually have in their life, what are potential solutions, how does your solution compare to those of all the other people out there that are basically doing similar things to you, and what proof do you have that you know how to do that stuff? You know, is there people that you can interview? So I found that a lot, that people that want to start the podcast have kind of gone onto the hype of like, everyone has one, I have to have one. But then when they start thinking about what would I even say, they don't have enough ideas. And usually it's down to that lack of connection with the person that you're speaking to. Because if you know them really well, I don't know, you have so many interactions with them that every interaction you have, you're like, right, this has got a podcast episode in it. So that's kind of the two most important background things that I encourage people to think about. How are you going to launch? Who is this for? And then try and write down the 100 episode list. And then it's literally just a case of going through the details that you need. You need a name for it. You need to write a description. You need to make some artwork that's going to be displayed, you know, in the podcast apps. And then, you know, your trailer, your podcast host. But those are all, they're the things people are scared of, the technical details. But actually, once you've done it once, you realize just how simple the entire process is, and that it's absolutely nothing to be scared of, and that the hard work was in the targeting, the client, the messaging, and the content, because that has to be good. Otherwise, you just make episodes every single week, but it isn't resonating with anyone.
Yeah, I get that. I tried to do solo podcasts some years ago, but they're actually live streams. They weren't really a podcast. And I found it really challenging. I would rather interview people because I can have a conversation with them, where it's a bit hard having a conversation with yourself.
Well, I always say, but whenever you hear me talking to myself in the house, please don't interrupt. Like, we're having a team meeting here.
That's it. Yeah,
to discuss
I so love that meme. I think it's wonderful. But yeah, so and I agree with, you know, the strategy that you've got to have your target market. Obviously, even if you're going to interview people, you still have to have an idea who you want to listen to your podcast. You know, mine's about business. I want business owners to listen, because the people that I have on are business owners, and they're sharing their insights and knowledge and expertise to hopefully help another business owner become better. That's the idea of this podcast. So, and it's working. And, you know, I'm getting heaps of people coming on now that I wouldn't have had in the beginning. But, you know, and you're right, it's about consistency. You need to be consistent. You need to, you know, if you say your episode's going to be out in 3 weeks, make sure that the guest has all of their information within that 3-week period. Otherwise, you know, they're not going to give you a good review. They're not going to refer you on to anybody, because you don't keep your word. It's really important to do what you say you're going to do and stick to it. And yeah, consistency, as you said, is absolute key. If you are going to have a weekly podcast on a Friday, make sure you're there every week on a Friday at whatever time you've chosen, because you know, you'll build your audience that way. And if you don't turn up, people won't come back if you've missed one episode, unless, like, you know, there's some extenuating circumstance, of course, where you can't.
Yeah, I think we have to remember that this space is just going to keep growing, right? And there's going to be a few things that really, really matter from the beginning. One of them is that the output that you have to produce has to be good enough so that people want to listen, right? So there's a few things that matter. I just opened a podcast yesterday that somebody recommended to me. And I opened it, and it was a person that talks about getting featured in like big media. So this is a media person, premium branding. So I was excited to open the podcast because I was like, oh, this looks like something that, could provide value to people who are maybe not in their first year of business, but who've been doing this for a while and who've got the basics covered, but they want to grow further, So I open it, I listened to it, and it was awful. It was like the intro was super loud. And then the person came on and the volume dropped so low that I basically had to max out the volume on my phone. And then an ad came on and sort of nearly popped my ears at that point. And then they'd used some sort of, I don't know if it was Descript or some other software that's like AI editing, but the beginning of every sentence where a cut was made was like cut off. And then I listened to that and I thought, okay, you've used the cheapest headset to record. You've tried to do it as quickly as possible, which when you're first starting is great, but you have to keep an eye on what your brand looks like and what's the sort of end product that you've put out there for me to connect with your brand. So I'm like, okay, if you're going to start, commit to a certain amount of quality and commit to consistency, because as more and more people get into the game, the minimum that we can do is make sure that this is a pleasant listening experience, basically from start through to finish. It represents our brand publicly well enough so that we'd be like, okay, if this was the only impression that somebody had of my business, they would be, it would be a positive impression. And then making sure that people are actually consistent, because I'm going to be honest, there might be a gazillion podcasts out there, but the majority of them don't make it past 10 or 12 episodes. It's just what it is. Like if you check, I will search for a topic that I'm interested in, and then maybe I'll open 10 podcasts that come up that had an episode on that topic. And out of those, if one or two are still active, that would sort of be the landscape.
There's 3 million podcasts out in the world at the moment.
And like 75% of them or something are basically dead.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And so there's like 600 million blogs out in the world at the moment. So, compare that to podcasting. Podcasting has a long way to catch up. And, honestly, there's such a scope to become a podcaster and share your knowledge and expertise. I think to me, in my mind, I mean, you're right, it is content marketing, but I think I think businesses should have one if they've got something to share and they can do it on a consistent basis.
Yeah, it doesn't compare quite to blogging. You see, you can kind of combine the both worlds, and that's why I love it. So when you're doing a podcast, or let me backtrack, you have 3 options really: blogging, podcast, YouTube, for long form content that connects with people. Those are like your main options. Now, if you do YouTube, you're going to have to show up on video. That's not everyone's thing. Not everyone. The lighting, but it. And again, if you're putting something out, it needs to represent your brand and who you are. So it's a quality thing and a commitment thing, and not everyone wants to do it. I have days where, honestly, I don't want to show up on video. Like I'm not feeling fresh. I don't want to go and like, put a face on and do all the things. Like I'm just not in that state of the mind, not in that time of the month where I want to be showing up on video. It really impacts my consistency. So for me, YouTube is out. Blogging is great for search, but the thing is, you are not making an emotional connection with the person that wrote the blog post, right? You're reading it. It was very informative. You might read another one. You will have them in your mind, but you don't know anything about the person that's written that blog post. You don't know how they speak, how enthusiastic they are, how much they know. And voice tells us like so much more about the person that we're speaking to. And when it comes to podcasting, you can combine it with blogging. You can have all the keywords that you've researched for SEO, have them in a spreadsheet, and then make podcast episodes around that topic, and then make sure that you write a decently long blog post to go under the podcast episode. So you're getting the benefits of SEO, you're getting the benefits of blogging. But if someone wants to listen and not read an article, they can actually then connect with you as a person. And that is the thing. At the end of the day, like, we have information overload now. We have any information we want soon, like as soon as AI tools connected permanently to the internet, getting information is going to take like 0.3 of a second. But people don't consume your content because of the information. It is because they're going to get more from you. They're going to get encouragement. They're going to get motivation. They're going to get perspective. They're going to get creativity. So that doesn't deliver the same way in a blog post as it does in a podcast episode. And people will literally get almost attached to you because they listen to your podcast all day, every day. They take you everywhere. They take you to the shower. They take you to the toilet. They take you on the train to work. They put you on in the car. You become like a part of a person's life for the time that they're listening to the podcast. And a blog post, it just doesn't do the same thing. And I feel like even YouTube, because you always have to have the app open, and then there's other videos, and then there's ads every few seconds, like it's nonstop. And there's so much to get distracted by on YouTube. I'm watching one video, and before I know it, oh yeah, there was a cute cat video. Now I'm watching a cute cat video. So it's not really the same level of connection that you get from a podcast.
No.
And it's like supercharged blogging.
Going back to your previous comments about, how the quality of the audio has to be really good. People will forgive you your video content, but they will certainly never forgive you for bad sound content at all. Don't even think about it. I know my first few episodes, probably my first 10, I didn't realize the audio was so bad. It was just absolutely terrible. And you can't do, if you're a solo podcaster, yes, then you can, do it all over again. That's fine. But if you're interviewing people, you can't just ring up or email and say, oh, can we just do that interview again because the audio was bad? So it's in some episodes, the audio has been bad on the guest side of the video, and I've had to manipulate the sound just so I can hear what they're saying. And if there's a freeze in the video, people don't mind, but if there's a freeze in the sound's crackly, no one's going to listen to you. They'll listen to one episode. They might give you a second chance, but very rarely.
Yeah, and there's normal things that you just can't control, and it happens. But there's some basic things. Like I always say, now getting a decent-ish mic that's meant to be recording voice doesn't cost all that much money anymore. Like $70 to $100 you have in a super quality item that is gonna sort you out. Then setting up your space in a way that you can record without any major issues also doesn't cost very much. Worst case, if you're in the US, built-in closets are like the way to go. Honestly, it gets a bit hot in summer, but you have the best recording environment. That's something that you can do. And then the better you are at recording and the more things that you put in place at the beginning to make sure that you have a good recording, the less editing you have to do. So when you're not an interview podcast, you can write a script. You can practice how to read that. And that will make sure that you make way, way, way less mistakes with it, and then you don't have to edit so much of it. And if your mic quality is good, your environment's good, and you've got a script, then you don't need to mess with learning so much about editing because you have a solid product to start with. And then you might even be able to ship that minus chopping the odd bad sentence out of it. But it's in the preparation that you can save yourself all of this time, and then you can do it quite efficiently. Or like if you can't, then get help. It's just in the beginning, it doesn't really matter that much. Like your first 10 episodes, like you're practicing, and honestly, no one's probably going to be listening intently. And if you're in the swing of things and you're saying, I'm going to continue to do that every single week for the next 2 years, it is worthwhile to do that. It is worthwhile to invest, because it will get you so many more opportunities. You might get invited to speak in other places. We've had clients that have been invited to speak at conferences because of their podcast. You're networking with other people. So if you're getting bigger guests on the show and they're sharing your episode, it's got to be decent, because otherwise they don't want to share it to their people because, hey, my own stuff is better quality than this thing that I did a guest on. Why would I share that? So it's all connected, and it's a long-term thing. So investing a little bit is definitely worth it. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jessica, you have something to share with the audience today, a toolkit. Would you like to describe what that is and where people can find it?
Sure. So I've put together a toolkit with everything inside it for anyone that wants to actually start the podcast. It's literally a guide completely, like it takes you from planning through every single stage that you need to have planned out before you start the podcast. So what we talked about with audience, what we talked about with the purpose of your podcast, the why you're doing it, the goals that you want to have. So kind of the important planning parts. And then it takes you step by step through the actual setup process. I have literally included all of the spreadsheets that we're using. I have Canva, artwork, templates inside the toolkit, and everything literally in one place. So you just take that toolkit, you work through it page by page, and by the end of it, you have a podcast. And if you don't have a major audience, you can literally do that in one single weekend. It doesn't take anything more than that. And the toolkit's available at pristinepodcast.com/toolkit, and it's $27. So yeah, pretty no-brainer for having everything.
I'm putting together my program that does that same thing. They can either do it online, or I can do it with them in a group environment, or I can actually do it a one-on-one, so I can actually teach them individually. So
they're so fun.
Yeah, I just have to do the videos, and then I'm done. But yeah, it's me. Like, I can do podcasting, but get me in front of a camera of my own, yuck.
I think maybe with a little bit of prompts written down, it might be a little bit easier, or get someone else to come and help you record and to just read the questions that you need to answer out to you. And then you feel like you're having a conversation with someone, as opposed to just being you sitting in front of the mic being like, right, where do I start? Or even do it live. Do it live with like 4 or 5 people once on Zoom calls, and then they'll be asking you questions, and then you answer them, and then you have it all recorded, and you just take that and put it into a course. And then it doesn't feel like it's just you trying to put something together. Plus, you know that it works for people because they're doing it live with you. So that's kind of a good way to be able to do it.
Good idea. Yes, more than just a pretty face, aren't you?
I had to make that pretty, though. You should have seen me an hour and a half ago. I was like, I remembered we were doing a video podcast. I was like, okay, right. Got some work to do.
Jessica, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you and to meet you. You are just so engaging. I loved every bit of the information that you shared today. Where can people find you if they want to work with you?
Yeah, sure. You can always find us at pristinepodcast.com. I'm around on Facebook, so anyone that can figure out how to spell my name can find me on Facebook, because there isn't very many of me. And I'm always happy to connect with people over there. I'm on Instagram now and again at Pristine Podcast, but fallen a bit out of love with Instagram, but you can still find us, and I'll reply to messages and things like that. But yeah, not particularly vibing.
Wonderful. If you were to give some words of encouragement or words of wisdom to anyone, what would they be?
That would be, if nobody is listening to your first episodes, that's a really good thing, because you get to practice in peace with nobody watching and nobody judging you, and you can delete them afterwards if you don't like them in a year's time and you're embarrassed. You can replace them, you can re-record them. So just do it. Start.
That's it. Yeah, just do it. That's what I reckon. I did mine, got mine up and going in 2 weeks. I just decided I was going to do it. Searched on Google. What did I have? I just had my laptop and nothing else. And interviewed my first person, and away I went, and I'm 480 episodes.
I was going to say,
later.
here you are, 400 episodes. Like, that's a great point to get to, and you will beat out anyone else because you're consistent and because you're doing it for the long term. And that's why it's going to win in future, because you are not in it for a quick something, for a quick magical result.
No, and that's if anyone's looking for a quick fix, a quick result, don't bother, because unless you, as you said before, unless you've got a huge email list and then you can put your episodes out to, you're not going to start off with a huge audience. So Jessica, thank you so much for your time. I've had an absolute ball talking with you, and I hope you'll come on again later on in the year.
Yep. Thank you for having me. It's always fun talking about podcasting.
Okay. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.